Welcome to the Penny Stamps Distinguished Speakers Series. My name is Mary Rader. I'm the Programming Manager for the University Musical Society, or UMS for short. Today we present the Lebanese interactive installation performance artist Tanya El-Khoury for an interview hosted by Tom Seller, the editor of Yale's international journal, Theater. Today's event is presented in partnership with UMS as part of the No Safety Net 3.0 Festival. This brings us 3 weeks of provocative theater, performance, and installation art addressing issues relevant to our time. Thank you. No Safety Net opened a couple weeks ago with the wildly popular Plastic Bag Store, which is still on for a little bit longer. Continuing now with Tanya El-Khoury's Cultural Exchange Rate, which is on at the Stamps Gallery through Sunday, January 29th. The Cultural Exchange Rate is a live interactive performance installation in which Tanya examines the universal story of migration through her own family's migration from border villages between Lebanon and Syria, tracing more than a century of border crossings. There are timed tickets required to attend, and student tickets are available. For information about tickets, you can go to ums.org. And coming up in the No Safety Net lineup next week, we have 2 performances by the artist Rachel Mars up at the Arthur Miller Theater. Please remember to silence your cell phones today, and a reminder, we will have a Q&A with the artist following the interview. You will see mics at the end of each of the aisles, so please come down to the mics and line up, and we'll take questions. Now to introduce us to Tanya and leading the conversation, we have Tom Seller. Tom is a writer, dramaturg, curator, and editor of Yale's international journal, Theater. He is a professor of dramaturgy and dramatic criticism at Yale. His writing has appeared in publications including Artforum, Bomb, The New York Times, The Guardian, 4 Columns, Theater Forum, and American Theater. He has served as a dramaturg at theaters including the Joseph Papp Public Theater, Center Stage in Baltimore, PS 122, the Yale Repertory Theater, Yale School of Drama, the Ontological Hysteric Theater, among many others. Seller co-edited Where No Wall Remains, a special edition of Theater on Borders and Performance with Tanya El-Khoury in 2021. Please welcome Tom Seller.
Good evening, nice to see everyone. I'm Tom Seller, and it's my honor and pleasure to introduce and talk with my colleague and friend, Dr. Tanya El-Khoury, an acclaimed maker of live art, a distinguished curator, author, and educator. Tanya El-Khoury is a live artist whose work focuses on audience interactivity and its political potential. Tanya's work has been translated into multiple languages and shown in 32 countries across 6 continents in spaces ranging from art museums to cable cars. She is the recipient of a Soros Art Fellowship, the Bessie's Outstanding Production Award, the International Live Art Prize, the Total Theater Innovation Award, and the Arches Brick Award. Tanya is Distinguished Artist in Residence of Theater and Performance and the director of the OSUN Center for Human Rights and the Arts at Bard College in New York. She holds a PhD from Royal Holloway University of London and is co-founder of the Dictaphone Group in Lebanon, a research and live art collective aiming to question our relationship to the city, redefining its public space. Her works engage the audience in close encounters with narratives drawn from the political realities of migration, displacement, and state violence. Born during the Lebanese Civil War, Tanya creates installations and performances that reflect on the production of collective memory and the cultivation of solidarity. Her performances are activated by tactile, auditory, and visual traces collected and curated by the audience and her collaborators, materials which are ultimately transformed through audience interaction. As has just been said, her work may be familiar to audiences here in Ann Arbor, where her interactive live art project, Cultural Exchange Rate, based on family memoirs of migration and borders, is currently at the Stamps Gallery through Sunday. Please join me in welcoming Tanya El-Khoury tonight.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Haven't had so many people in one event before. I work with very small audience. I'm going to take a photo. Yes, thank you for the... Send it to my mother.
Smile.
Hey.
Tanya, I wanted to begin by talking about cultural exchange rate, since there may be some people here who have just seen the piece or who are going to see the piece between now and Sunday. I myself just saw it for the second time this morning, and I think it's a great introduction to the kind of work that you do. We each receive a set of keys, 10 keys to be precise, and each key opens a kind of locker in a kind of room full of vaults, and we stick our heads into these spaces, we enter them, we sit in them, we take objects out, we touch them, we watch video, we listen to audio, and all of it relates to the village that you grew up in on the border between Syria and Lebanon. So I wanted to ask you about this project, but first maybe we could look at a brief video clip from the piece to kind of give people an idea of what this looks and feels like. So let's first go to the video.
She would ask me to cut or comb her hair.
My great-grandmother, and Rashid, my great-grandfather. I found two women with names close enough to Sada.
Thank you. This is just the trailer. Watch the whole thing.
So Tanya, what was your original inspiration and motivation to make a piece about migration? And why did you want to center it on your family's history, starting with your great-grandfather?
So, I mean, there are projects that take very short time to create, like a day, perhaps one seating. They start from an image. And there are projects that really take a decade to create. And this is one of the projects that took over a decade. I started collecting stories, first with my late grandmother, before thinking about this piece. Very early on, I was still a student, like doing the BA, starting my studies. I was interested in the fact that she lived on a border village between Lebanon and Syria, but completely disregarded that colonial made borders, not as a revolutionary decolonial act, but total normalization of border crossing, because she was older than the actual Western colonial made border before the division of Lebanon and Syria and the area there. So I was interested in that, and I was collecting oral history with her. I was interested also with the fact that she lived outside of the state, so never really used the state, never had a bank account, never studied in state schools. At the same time, the state regarded those marginalized people as undesirables, also like not worthy of public utilities, not worthy of care in general, infrastructure. At the same time, I have been interested for a long time with myth making and survival in working class family, and how a lot of men in my own family collected these devalued money as if they had value, financial value. They didn't understand their ecological value, but they collected them in the hope that one day they can make money out of them. But they never made the money. So it was really interesting how like that myth in a family. So when I had the chance to create work on borders within the context of the festival of where no wall remains in 2019 at BARD, I decided to put together all this information that I had for a long time and create this piece.
And so what was the research process for it? Like, you're dealing with oral histories from within your family, but also other forms of research. And how is this your normal process, or was this special?
So it depends on the project, but a lot of the time I try to rely on various modes of research. Some is academic, like looking into archives, and other forms of research is more field-based research on the ground. So this had a combination. It had looking into state archives and looking into the actual migration cards from people who emigrated from Lebanon to Mexico in the 1920s and 30s, and looking at their photos and trying to see if one of them looks like us and have a matching name. There is all of the footage of recording my grandmother, late grandmother, for a very long time. There's looking into personal objects at home, like people who made family trees. I looked into DNA online, that people, like families who would try to make the family tree as well. I hired a lawyer to look into state archives in Mexico, specifically looking at the birth certificate of my grandfather. We looked even into churches' archives in Mexico City. So a combination, and I really like that, and I like the fact that we can put various modes of research together without any hierarchy, like nothing is better than the other. Like you would, in these cabinets, you would see information from State Archive, and next to it you would see text messages between my family and I, trying to figure out if one of these guys look like us or not, and trying to like really do the face matching, and they sit next to each other, both as research.
And is your family on board with this? I mean, you've got text messages with your family, Skype calls that you've recorded, you're bringing out family letters and documents, and...
So none of my family, extended or near, are artists or care about art. They care about different things. In this situation, they care about, because a lot of them have just the Lebanese passport, and there was the hope that if we find the birth certificate of my grandfather in Mexico, we can all apply to become Mexican citizens, which in where we come from, it's better to have the Mexican passport is way better than the Lebanese passport, which is one of the worst in the world. So this is why they were on board. They were all, go Tanya, go Tanya. We haven't found it. Unfortunately yet, we found the marriage certificate of the parents of my grandfather, but not his birth certificate yet.
And then you made this piece in 2019, but since then,
everything happened.
Everything in Lebanon has changed, and the national situation has grown significantly worse. And so as the worldwide crises for migrants, a lot of people need to migrate very desperately in these times. What, does that make you think differently about this piece about migration now in 2023?
Yeah, so the piece had a very interesting chronology. So when it opened, part of the piece we said, today Lebanon is on the brink. It seems like it's on the brink of yet another economic, not even collapse, like we said, the situation. And then a few months later, there was a complete collapse of the economy, the Lebanese economy. Currently, the currency in Lebanon lost 90% of its value. This is huge worldwide. And the week that this piece opened, it was in October 2019 in Munich, the huge protest movement erupted in Lebanon, one of the biggest protest movement in its contemporary history. And I remember I literally left the work in Munich and flew back to join the protest and then catch it back again. And everyone was texting me from the festival in Munich, come back, we're worried about you, it doesn't look safe. And the criminality, it wasn't safe, and it continued not to be safe. And the criminality of the Lebanese state, who from the beginning of its establishment by colonial power, has always been about amassing wealth and power for the elite with complete disregard to human life. And they crushed the protest movement, the economy collapsed, and they blamed the protesters of the economic collapse. And obviously we've seen the most spectacular version of state violence in the 4th of August 2020 explosion in Beirut, which killed more than 270 people and made many hundreds homeless and injured, and there is still no accountability whatsoever. So yeah, the piece has resonance of all of that, of people who try to survive basically throughout the history of that place and around the world. And fun fact is that when we started this piece, we used devalued money from the 1980s, but now we're using the current money because it's cheaper. It's cheaper to use the current circulated money, like the notes, than to get the old money that is sold as souvenir.
90% devaluation of currency that's astounding. These are issues that can seem so large in scale: mass migration, economic collapse, state violence. But one of the things that I really appreciate about your work is the intimacy that you bring to these questions in the situations that you create. There's a change in scale that makes it makes it approachable for people who maybe don't always think about these kinds of questions. So I wanted to ask you about that, particularly in relationship to a previous piece that you did, As Far as My Fingertips Take Me. This is a piece that was here actually in Ann Arbor 3 years ago, right? Which is an encounter between a single audience member, one person at a time, and a Palestinian refugee from Syria, Basil Zara, who draws on the arm of the audience member.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a question about that, but maybe first we could look at the clip that you have just to give an idea of what he does and what the kind of physical relationship is between the spectator and the performer, I guess we could call him for lack of a better word.
Great.
Okay, so let's look at that clip.
Hello, my name is Baz. I'm sitting on the other side of the wall. Please, place your left arm in the hole, in the wall in front of you. This is me, touching your arm.
So back to the intimacy question, you can see from the video what a kind of both intimate experience that is and also how kind of anonymous it is at the same time, in a way. Can you talk about how you thought about that and where the idea came from?
At the beginning when I said I usually work with one audience, not that many. I think, there's a lot that has been talked about in relation to intimacy, for example, as a feminist method of research and working with the other that counters these like imposing and grand gestures, or intimacy as a way to generate empathy and solidarity and connect to the other. I'm interested in all of that, obviously, but I'm also interested in intimacy as an aesthetic choice, as an aesthetic choice to bring in the audience from that, kind of sitting in the dark, to a more horizontal relationship where we can collaborate on a work together, where it's not one entertaining the other, but together trying to connect, collaborate, create work together. And for me, it's more exciting because that means every single work is differently. Like it's not, some people like creating shows that lasts for years and every single night is the same. It's the version of nightmare. Like, I would not want that. I would like to create work where there is a potential for every single show or iteration of the work to be completely different. This particular piece, for example, it depends on the actual encounter. Sometimes Basil have met the people, sometimes they don't, they remain kind of anonymous. Sometimes they build a friendship, they connect for a much longer time. So it really depends on the person. And I like that. I like that intimacy as a way of creating work that feels more horizontal and collaborative between the audience and the artist or the artwork.
Can you tell us a little bit about what he draws? And also, he's been doing this piece all over the world in the last couple of years. What's the range of experiences that he has had in kind of doing this? He's met all kinds of people. They've had many different reactions, right?
Yeah. It's much longer than 2 years, actually. It's been touring, I would say, since 2016. And this is an example of a piece that actually started from just one sitting. I actually dreamt about the piece. I just had a dream about the whole piece, like that kind of connection between a wall, a hand, and I shared it with Basil, who never really performed in such a thing before. He's a musician, he's a street artist, he creates graffiti, he does rap, and I asked him if he would be interested in doing it for one event, and he was, and we just really worked on it in one afternoon when we had this idea of a line of people being drawn on someone's arm. And we did it in an event, we tested it out, and then people really were moved by it in a way that we didn't expect. One of the ways that people were moved by it that I did not think about at the beginning is that those people on your arm just stays on your arm for a few days. So even though the piece is just a 10-minute intimate, tactile experience and you just leave, you just see it on your arm for 3 days and you start seeing them disappear and you kind of build this relationship. People have said they didn't want it to disappear. They would like shower like that. Some people ask if they can tattoo it. I've seen one person who tattooed it because he sent me photos. I don't know if other people tattooed it. But it generated a response that you could never know ahead of time in interactive work. And it's been touring and it's been translated into various languages.
Like so many of your pieces, I left that piece in a state of sort of heightened awareness and with a lot of feelings. And I want to ask you a little bit about what how you want spectators to leave your pieces and what you want them to do with the experiences that they've had. To set that question up, maybe we could look at our final clip, which is of your piece Gardens Speak, which you made in, what year was this?
It opened in 2014.
14, okay. And this is a piece which asks the spectators to listen really with their body. I mean, I was lying down on the ground in the earth with my head next to a kind of speaker, which was also a little bit suggestion of a tombstone or something like that. And it asks each spectator to listen with their body to the oral history of one of 10 ordinary people who were killed in the political protests in Syria that ultimately led to the civil war. And it's a really intimate experience, intimate the way that these are, but also it's a piece that activated a kind of potential in its spectators. So I want to ask you about that when we come back from the clip, just about what was produced by having your spectators do that. So let's look at that last clip. So you've talked sometimes about the political potential of what these kinds of experiences can do. Is that how you think about this?
Yeah. I think I'm greedy politically. Like, I want it all. I want to expose the state violence, and I want to counter some of these, the mainstream narrative, especially in media, and counter-revolutionary forces. But at the same time, I don't want to just propose a political message in a very, dictate feelings and ideas to people, because I think it's counterintuitive. I think a lot of people shut down when we just lecture them politically. Those who agree with you might just feel a little bit irritated by the arrogance, and those who disagree might just hate you more, I'd say. So I find that it makes sense to me personally to start from a clear and humble political motivation. At the same time, think of it as a potential. And the political potential is not in just communicating my own political motivation to the others, by opening up a space where people can connect to these information or to these stories in a way that it's not just rational, but also multi-sensory. You talked about hearing with the body. There is the smell element, there is the touch, there is the connection, there is human. There's the fact that mourning is global, grief is global, the fact that you connect about your own mortality. This is where the potential is, but that's I see that differently from the motivation. The motivation of this piece was very clear to me. It started at the beginning of the Syrian uprising, where the Assad regime was denying that any protester was being killed. And people, some mainstream media were doing the same, Hezbollah in Lebanon was doing the same. So this was very clear for me. It's about telling the stories of people who were killed. And I was interested in particularly by those who were buried in their own gardens, and how gardens as a space of life where people hang out, where flowers grow, where trees bloom, and are becoming a place of mourning or hiding bodies of those who were killed. And I was really interested in that, and I continue to be interested in how sometimes even after you die, you're not free from state violence, because it can continue, like follow you to the grave, to your death, by trying to change and contest how you were killed and how you will be remembered, and who will tell your story, and will people be able to celebrate you or not. So it felt like this is part of the struggle against that criminality, is to be in that war narrative. It was like really war narrative, or narrative war, one of them.
So as the clip points out, you created this collectively with the friends and the family of each of the murdered protesters. So there's a collective element to the creation. And then ultimately you created an additional sort of segment to the piece, so that people who had seen the piece had a place to express what they had discovered in seeing it. Can you talk about that as well?
So no, at the very end of the Garden Speak, people are asked, the audience are asked to write a letter back addressed to the person who they just heard the story, and bury it in the soil. And they're told that some of these letters will be shared with the friends and families who shared with us the story. So this was the premise of the letter writing. And for me, it was a way to bring in the personal of the audience into the story. So give them time to reflect on what they just heard, to connect, to give back, to express themselves, and bury it in that same ground. But after the piece started touring and years passed, I lost some contact with people who we spoke with at the beginning, and many have emigrated, have fled the country, or those who I spoke to in Lebanon have then moved from Lebanon to elsewhere for like a kind of a more long-term refuge. So I felt like those letters become like a burden for me, like thousands of letters that I didn't know what to do with them, but also felt the ethical issues in like sending them back to some of the people who since have tried to move on, have tried to build a life. So I decided to share them in an installation, not to open up a space where people can go like in a voyeuristic way and read what others have written, but really to show that kind of scale of those letters that were written in so many languages around the world, and that scale of possible solidarity and connection from around the world.
So in each of these three examples, we're hearing you talk about how much care you've put into the mode of experience, and I want to ask you about your curating work also, because you're doing more and more of it, and I'm curious how that relates to your own projects. You've curated 2 biennials of art and performance, one called No Wall Remains, which was about borders and performance in 2019, and you're currently curating a biennial of art and performance about land and food, the politics of land and food, both at Bard College. But you've also done projects in Brussels, Tunis, a project about feminism in Vienna. How do those curatorial projects map onto your work as an artist?
You know, visual artists do it all the time. Visual artists tend to curate each other and create their own work, and somehow this feeds into their research. Now we're seeing it more and more happening with people who, like me, create live and performance work. And I think it's a way to situate one's work in a community and put them in conversation vis-a-vis other people who they also find inspiring. So it's been a really exciting opportunity for me. But on another level, what I find really fascinating is how, as an artist, I can be in an institution and try somehow to push it to become more artist-centric. To think from the point of view of an artist, because I understand it's a privilege to be invited to the table of curators and people who decide on what to focus on, you know, even little things like how much to pay an artist, how much time do we give them. So to be on that table and to force a sort of more equitable, kind of ethical way of dealing with artists is very important for me, and it's been quite rewarding.
Can you tell us maybe one or two of the projects that are in the food biennial that might illuminate the kind of thinking you're doing as a curator?
I am excited about a project with a woman from Puerto Rico called Tara Rodriguez, who lives on a kind of off-grid queer farm in Puerto Rico, and who will be sharing one of the very rare time that this farm shares some of its modes of working and collaborating and creating work, both artistic and caring for the land, will be shared during that festival. What else? One of the pieces that we had already opened by Cooking Sections, who are a duo based in London, worked on the industrialization of salmon farming. And the piece for me was really effective as a piece that takes research and political activism and aesthetics on a level that one can learn a lot from, but at the same time be affected by it. So they've worked a lot on how in industrialized salmon farming, one look at coloring, you know, because salmons get colored in the farming, and taking that coloring and looking at it about how we perceive color, both in art and our daily life, was very inspiring.
So in addition to curating, you're also now the director of the newly launched Center for Human Rights and the Arts at Bard, which is part of the Open Society University Network, a global network of universities. Congratulations. Can you talk a little bit about what goes on there and why you wanted to run this kind of institute and how that extends your other practices?
So the Osun Center for Human Rights and the Arts at Bard, which we call SHRA because it's shorter, has an MA program and has public programming as well on the side. The MA program and the public programming is a unique space where really we're digging deeper into that question of what makes art political, what makes politics close to art, and this is done by bringing activists and artists to be side by side and working together without having one just using the other as a tool. So it's not about art that uses political issues just as content, and it's not about activists who just want to create aesthetically pleasing art, but really how can we look at both these practices as also in a horizontal way, and that they can feed into each other very seemingly. Yeah, it's been, again, rewarding because it's bringing people from all over the world.
How many students?
About 15 yearly, yeah. And from all over the world, people who are activists and artists, and because we have funding, it doesn't really rely on people who can afford MA. Most of it is based on scholarships, so it means that a lot of very interesting people, and it's widely accessible for everyone around the world.
So now that you're enmeshed in higher education, I'm wondering about your own educational path. What did you study, and how did that relate to what you do now?
Theater.
Theater?
So I studied theater throughout my life, but I never created theater. I mean, some people do call my work theater, and I won't be offended if you call it theater, but it's not theater. It's not really theater. As in, it never exists in a space like this, even though this space is gorgeous. So if you give it to me, I might do work in it, but I haven't been interested so far. And theater is space, and theater is also a text, heavily relying on texts. And theater for me is that relationship between a seated audience and entertainers. And when I started studying it, I just felt uncomfortable with that relationship. I felt it wasn't something that I feel very comfortable with, and it felt a little bit elitist as a space. So I'm still, finding my space in it, but that's why I call my work live art, because it's art that relies on that liveness, on the liveness element, and it's a wider term that could involve interactive installation. There is innovative in where it places that art. It could be in any place. I've created work that happens in the middle of the sea, in a cable car, or in galleries, like the one that is here in Stamps.
You mentioned wanting a kind of shift for the form to accommodate what you see. And I'm wondering if you could talk more about what you're seeing right now. I mean, you're working so globally across so many national contexts, US, UK, Middle East, and beyond. What do you see happening for live arts at this moment, kind of a perilous moment in history? There's been a lot of very disturbing political changes, and in some ways the arts of all kinds are under siege.
It's not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think, what do you see as the present situation, and what do you think needs to be done?
I mean, I think artists, like everyone else, are still trying to make sense of the last few years. I think we need time to actually understand what's been happening and how we go about it. It's not a simple thing to live a global pandemic that completely shift the way we live life, and that threatens the very nature of live performance or just being together with strangers in any art setup. And we've seen that some people are very quick at trying to go back to business as usual, and others who are trying to take a moment to either shift the way that they create work, or they make a living, or where they live. But just to take a moment to think, or at least this is what I hope happens, is that we take a moment to rethink how we create art and how we share it, how we produce it. I don't think it's sustainable to continue to rely on just like globe-trotting, and I've been very, guilty of that in the last 15 years, but I don't think it is, reasonable or sustainable to continue to do that, but to rethink a way of working globally in a sustainable way, and that puts people first, not the overproduction in art.
And presumably that will require a rethinking of institutional resources and a lot of other changes to accommodate that kind of shift.
Yeah, and we've seen it happening. Like I've been in touch with some festivals around the world or venues who shifted their funding, for example, to support artists just to live in different places without string attached. There have been a lot of relief effort, solidarity amongst artists, especially people who are on the more privileged side of things, and this is very remarkable, but we need to think together about longer plans of sustainable ways of working, both locally without just becoming provincial and closed, but continue to be global in our collaborations and thinking together in a sustainable way.
Do you have advice for younger people, or actually anyone who might be entering into a creative practice or into the arts profession, theater, art, live art, at this moment? What would you tell them to think about?
Wear sunblock, even in winter. Everything else is less important. I would say, I'd say what worked for me, it doesn't necessarily need to work for you, but because there's no formula, what works for you doesn't mean that it works for everybody else. But I think to create your own mediums, you set your own boundaries is important. So I think you need to really keep it in your mind that you shouldn't bend for the art word. The art word need to bend for you, to you. So it's the art word, the art industry follows the artist. This is what's supposed to do. But I think it's sometimes artists are pushed to think that they should please the art word or please the industry, and that doesn't really work, in my opinion. One other advice is to be surrounded by people who are inspiring, by peers who you could collaborate with, who you could build a community with and help each other. But when you collaborate outside of this very tight group of people, because it gets boring. So if you have this, you're just collaborating with people who do exactly the same as you, I don't know what you can come up with. But if you collaborate with doctors, collaborate with scientists, people who do great work, but they have less audience, or they have very small audience or different audience. So you could give them that audience and use that knowledge in a different way, in a playful way. That worked for me. I'm enjoying doing that.
So with that, I think we'll turn to the audience for your questions. And there are 2 microphones down here at the foot of the stage. So if you would like to come down, and we'll sort of alternate left and right, assuming we have people on both the left and the right. But please, we want to hear from you. Maybe some of you have seen Cultural Exchange Rate, or maybe some of you have questions in response to what Tanya has just said today. So please don't be shy. Please come down and join us here at the foot of the mic. Hello.
Hi.
Is it working?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll do our first question now, if everyone could just focus on our speaker here.
Cool. Thank you, Tanya, very much. The work is very, very exciting. I had 2 questions, so I'm going to be greedy. One is, since the work is so interactive, and you also come from the performance background where the audience plays such a big role, how do you think of the viewer's body and the viewer's interaction, and how much of a role does that play in the way it's going to be postured in when you're thinking conceptually about the work? And it's different for different projects, I imagine, but how does it? And my second question is about the arm piece. When the artist was drawing on their arms, one, what was the reason to keep him anonymous and behind walls, but also, what was going on? Was there conversation? Was it in silence, etc.? If you could expand more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I answer? Thank you so much for your answer. Yeah, you quote me about the viewer's body. I actually do think about it as a choreography. I do plan it like I am planning, choreography for performers, with the understanding that these are not professional performers, they're not paid for it. In fact, they paid to come and see it. So with the understanding that they can shift the choreography. But I do, when I design, and thank you for asking this, because very few people have asked or noticed that this is what I do. I really think about it as a choreography and building with the audience different images. Now, as far as my fingertips take me, the idea, I said I dreamt about it, and I think the dream was very much about response to the artwork, how like the gallery wall, it was a gallery wall, like very white with vinyl letter written on it, and how that gallery wall can connect people in an intimate way. And can it really, or can it not? It was a response, I think, subconscious response to the artwork. But what happens during that time is that they are listening to a sound piece. Starts with an introduction by Bassel saying, "Hi, I'm on the other side, da da da," and then a song that he created, and they hear his voice rapping. And yeah, so they don't see. I think a lot of the time when you work with tactile experiences or smell or different senses, closing or shutting down a bit the visual, because we use visual quite a lot. Shutting it will help a lot to dig deeper into other senses. So that was also why it wasn't a complete open at the beginning, but then they meet at the end if they want to.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, hello.
Hi.
My name is Jada, and first of all,
Yeah, I do.
Your work was very inspiring. Thank you so much for that. So my question is, so when you arrive to a stopping point in your art career, what is your solution for having a motivation to go through the plan? And what if your plans don't work? What would be another, the plan B, or what would you do about it?
Thank you. So the plan, the question was, correct me if I was wrong, so you start with a political motivation, and then what's the plan to take that political motivation into a piece, and then after the piece is shared, if the plan didn't work out, do you have a plan B?
Yeah,
right?
Basically, yeah. If you arrive to a stopping point, what's your motivation?
Yeah, so it depends on every single piece starts with a different motivation, obviously, and the motivation is usually political, usually an interest, sometimes it's being inspired, sometimes it's being angered by something, sometimes it's moved by something, inspired, all of the different ways we react to things around us, to the world. So I start with that, and then with the understanding that even if you have a plan, things might fail, or people might see it differently, or people might not connect in a way that you want them to connect. So how I deal with that is that I have priorities. So my priority is to not reinforce the same power dynamics that I'm trying to, let's say, counter or criticize. This is the priority. So if I'm working, let's say, with people who were displaced, is not to reinforce a certain stereotype on them or to abuse their time and not pay them or, I don't know, just disrespect them or if they ask me to be anonymous, just out them or things like that. This is the priority. Everything else is fine if it fails. I think all artists should have the opportunity and the space to sometimes fail or create work that doesn't work as much as the other work, and that's fine. It's part of how we grow. But my priority is not to, my priority is that people come first before the outcome, before any art production. Art is not that important at the end of the day.
All right, thank you so much.
Unlike what they tell you, it's not important. It's just art.
It's a great question. We don't talk about that very much, right? So,
Hi. Sorry. I really enjoyed what you said about intimacy being a form of feminist research, and I was wondering if you could speak a bit more about that, maybe particularly in relation to any relationships you form with the people that you're working with, or in the case of the Garden Speaks piece, when you're working with people who are maybe vulnerable and navigating the dynamic of that.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a lot of, writing about this shared vulnerability and shared care and empathy as a feminist tool, but also as a way that we could relate to others, and that doesn't use the very spectacular forms of imposing, narrative or imposing or dictating ways of being, which we see quite a lot everywhere around us with these forced ads, forced narratives. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in gentle art making that lingers for a very long time. It's not gentle in a way that it just passes very quickly. It can linger in different ways, sometimes in a whispered word, sometimes in a mark on the body, in unconventional ways. It stays with you, not as a way of shocking you. There's a long history of art that tries to shock you out of your comfort zone, or art that wanna, tell you, put a mirror of society in front of you, wants you to confront the reality. And I don't like that. I find it in a way quite patriarchal way of that a lot of white male artists have used for a very long time. It's an assumption that your audience are all privileged art goers who need you as an artist to educate them or to push them out of their comfort zone. I don't want to assume that all audience are people who are super comfortable and need to be shocked, So that's one way of dealing with it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, you mentioned that several of your works have been translated, and you also speak very generously about different types of collaboration, and I do think that translation is really fascinating in artistic contexts, particularly in cultural exchange, right? There are moments where we hear your voice speaking in Spanish, and we read the subtitles, and that lands in a very particular way, and I'd just love to hear you speak more about your process of collaborating with translators and how it folds out in your work.
Yeah, thank you. I try to translate the work as much as possible, because I feel that when the work tours, if you hear it and it's in your local language, you relate to it differently. And if you hear it in Also, what accent you hear it is important. So when it's Garden Speak, when it got translated into French, for example, it was very important for me that it will be performed by migrants, because they have a different accent than the very generic, white French accent, and that evokes differently. You relate to it differently. And I wanted to counter that idea that the art world speaks English all the time. And you go to places and they tell you, well, everybody speaks English. And I'm like, no, my parents don't speak English. Why do I want to alienate them? Translate it. It's just a few $100 more, but it's worth it. So I try to do that, and I like the fact that it exists in different languages. When it's a language that I speak, it's very exciting for me because it feels like I hear it differently. And when I don't speak that language, it becomes a trust exercise. So I'm trusting that it has its own life right now in a language that I don't understand. Yeah, I find it very fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. I'm curious about your educational background in theater. Coming from a traditional theater education background myself, I'm curious to know how traditional theater practices can inform art forms that are more experimental, like live art, and like what experimental art forms like live art can learn from traditional theater practices, and on the contrary, what can traditional theater practices take from things like live art that are more focused on an intimate connection with the audience?
Thank you. I think, you could learn whatever you want, and you could use it or not use it. It stays with you. So I definitely use elements of theatricality, of this kind of magic, reveal that is in the theater. I use choreography. I use, the idea of light and designed object. I also use presence. The presence of the actual presence that I learned from years of actually being trained as a performer. I even been trained as a dancer, and you could use those. But what I'd like you to take out of this is that you could create your own form. Even if you were trained in one thing, you could create your own form. And of course, they can feed into each other, but you could also bring in other things that you're interested in, whether other forms of sound, other visual forms, other research elements. So I think we should widen that idea that we should be trained in one thing and do it in this particular thing.
Great.
Thank you.
I think we have time for these two last questions, so let's start over here.
Hi. First, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the work that you make, and all of these pieces that I've known of. Your last visit here, you were so generous about allowing us at the Institute for the Humanities Gallery to present both the fingertips piece and coexisting with stories of refuge. And that was just before the pandemic. It was like this incredible moment, really. So I wondered if you might speak to the way those coexisted and whether that led to you thinking about pieces being like chapters, one leading to another, or living together, and also the shift in storytelling in your work from, presenting stories and then stories of refuge being a first person.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, I couldn't see them living together because I couldn't come. I was giving birth at that time. But I thought it's a great idea to put these two pieces who were created in different places live together side by side, because they connect in the fact that are stories of people who found refuge elsewhere. And I like when pieces connect to each other, and I've since had experiences of different pieces of mine touring together, and how people connect to them or build bridges is always very exciting and interesting to me, because they see things that I don't necessarily see. And we were talking about that yesterday too, about how it's very exciting that pieces have a total different word or life when they tour to different places and where they exist. So this piece, the Stories of Refuge, was first shown in shipping containers in the street in Germany. Right. And then they lived in a gallery. So, and that connection is totally, that shift is very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And final question.
Had to ask, what was the reason behind having the people put their heads in the grave? What was your thought process?
Thank you. So the idea was that these stories are buried in the soil, that wherever, I started with that image that wherever you are in the world, if you press your ear to the ground, you'll be able to hear stories that were hidden. So this is what I was working with. And I wanted the audience to actually dig to get closer to the sound. Symbolically, you can talk about like dirtying your hand, being implicated, but also what it does to kind of smell fresh soil, to feel it with your hand. And then you get closer, you put your head to get closer to the sound. The sound was buried. It's one speaker. And I was trying, and I continue to play with sound, how we can work with it differently, not in the usual surround that we hear, all of us, but it could be mono and whispered in one ear, while in the other ear you're hearing the reality around you and what that does. I'm interested in that. That was the reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we have to end. Thank you all for these excellent, thoughtful questions. Thank you, Tanya, for your generosity and vision. And thank you to everyone at the Stamps Speaker Series for this invitation. Good night.